Be Attentive, Series 12, Volume 29, February 13th, 1931. My daughter, the substance of our divine being is an immensity of most pure light that produces an immensity of love. This light possesses all goods, all joys, interminable happiness, indescribable beauties. This light invests everything, sees everything, and closes everything. For it, there is neither present nor future, but one single act, always in act, that produces such multiplicity of effects as to fill heaven and earth. Now the immensity of love that this our light produces makes us love our being and everything that comes out of us with such love as to render us true and perfect lovers. So we can do nothing other than love and give love and ask for love. Now for the one who lives in our will, our light and our love echo in the creature and transform her into light and love. Now what happiness ours is in forming our types and models from the work of our creative hands. Therefore be attentive, and let your life be formed of nothing other than light and love, if you want to make your dear Jesus content. My daughter, our work toward the creature started with creation, and our work is in the Word, because containing our creative strength, it speaks and creates. It speaks and forms the most beautiful and marvelous works. In fact, with the work of 6 Fiats that we pronounced, the whole great machine of the universe was formed, including man, who was to inhabit it and be the king of our so many works. Then after having ordered everything, our love called us to rest. But rest does not mean completion of the work. It means pause, in order to resume the work again. Now, do you want to know when we resume our work again? Each time we manifest a truth, we resume the work of creation. So all that was said in the Old Testament were resumptions of the work. My coming upon earth was nothing other than resuming the work for love of creatures. My doctrine, the many truths uttered by my mouth, pointed out in clear notes my intense work for the creatures. And just as in creation our divine being rested, so with my death and resurrection I wanted to rest, also to give the time to make the fruit of my work bear fruit in the midst of creatures. But this was always rest, not the completion of the work. Our work until the end of the centuries will always be alternation of work and rest, of rest and work. See then, good daughter, what a long work I had to do with you by manifesting to you so many truths on my divine will. And since the thing that most interests our Supreme Being is to make it known, I held nothing back for a work so long, though I have often taken little breaks of rest in order to give you the time to receive my work, and to prepare you for other surprises of the work of my creative word. Therefore be attentive to preserve and not to lose anything of the work of my word that contains an infinite value, that is enough to save and sanctify an entire world. Volume 29, March 6, 1931. Good daughter, my daughter, courage. Your Jesus still loves you. In nothing has my love for you decreased, and this because it was not you who refused me the suffering. No, my daughter would never have done this. They forced you to. and I in order to give you peace, and to make them see that it was really I who kept you in that state of suffering for so many years. It was neither illness nor any other natural cause, but my paternal goodness that wanted to have one who would make up for my pains on earth, and these for the good of all. And now that they have forced you, and have forced me also with their impositions, I made it cease completely, giving you a break. This says in clear notes that only your Jesus was the author of your state. But I cannot hide my sorrow. It is so great that I can say that in the whole history of the world I have never received a similar sorrow from creatures. My heart is so grieved and torn by this sorrow that I am forced to hide from you the deep gash, so as not to embitter you more. And then to see the indifference of some, and you know who they are, as if they had done nothing to me, increases my sorrow. And they force my justice to continue to pour the scourges. And I will continue, my daughter, to pour the chastisements. I told you this before, that if even just 1 month would pass of my keeping you suspended from your state of suffering, they will hear and see how many chastisements will pour down over the face of the earth. And while my justice does its course, we will occupy ourselves together with my divine will, I making it known to you, and you receiving the good of its knowledges, because each knowledge brings the growth of the life of my will in you. And for each act of yours done in the new knowledge, my fiat gains more ground in your soul, and extends more its kingdom in it. More so since creatures have no power to enter into my divine will to disturb us and dictate to us the law. Therefore we are free to do whatever we want. We have absolute freedom. Therefore be attentive to continue to cross its interminable seas. Volume 29, April 2nd, 1931. My daughter, what am I to do with your pains without your will? I do not know what to do with them, nor will they be able to serve me to disarm divine justice, or to placate my just indignation, because what the creature has of the most beautiful and of the most precious is the will. The will is gold. All the rest of hers are superficial things, things without substance, and the very pains are without value. On the other hand, if the gold thread of the spontaneous will flows in the pains, it has the virtue of changing them into most pure gold, worthy of he who suffered everything voluntarily, and even death itself for love of creatures. If I wanted pains without will, there is such an abundance of them in the world that I could take as much as I want. But since the gold thread of their will is missing, they are not for me. They do not attract me. They do not wound my heart, nor do I find in them the echo of my voluntary pains. Therefore they do not have the virtue of changing the scourges into grace. So the pains without will are empty inside, without fullness of grace, without beauty, without power over my divine heart. A quarter of an hour of voluntary pains is enough to make up for and surpass all the most atrocious pains that exist in the world, because these are in the human order, while voluntary ones are in the divine order. And besides, from the little daughter of my will, I would never accept her pains without the spontaneity of her will. It was the will that rendered you beautiful and graceful in my eyes. that opened the currents of my manifestations on my divine will, and that with a magnetic force drew me to make my visits so often to your soul. Your will, sacrificed voluntarily for love of me, was my smile, my amusement, and had the virtue of changing my sorrows into joys. Therefore I will rather content myself with keeping the pains only for myself, rather than making you suffer without the spontaneous acceptance of your will. Oh, how you would degrade yourself, and would go down to the low level of the children of the human will, losing the noble title, the precious characteristic of daughter of my will. In my will there is no forcing. In fact, no one forced it in creating the heavens, the sun, the earth, and man himself, but it acted voluntarily, without anyone saying anything to it, for love of creatures. Yet it knew how much it was going to suffer because of them. So I want for the one who wants to live of my will. Force is of the human nature. Force is impotence, is mutability. Force is the true character of the human will. Therefore be attentive, good daughter. Let us not change things, and do not want to give this sorrow to my heart too embittered. Volume 29, April 4th, 1931. You must know that man, by withdrawing from our divine will, denied the origin and disordered himself, and he remained vacillating, without support, without strength. At each step he felt himself pushed to fall, as though feeling the ground missing under his feet, and heaven over his head in act unloading itself upon him in a fierce storm. Now a means was needed in order to firm up the earth and make heaven smile. And here is my coming upon earth, as means to reunite heaven and earth, God and man. So to the one who has my divine will as origin, the means is revealed, and she will embrace the whole work of redemption, and will give me the requital of the love and the glory of all the pains that I suffered in order to redeem man. Now, if there is the origin and the means, there must be the end. The end of man is heaven, and for the one who has my divine will as origin, all of her acts flow into heaven as the end that her soul must reach, and as the origin of her beatitude that will have no end. And if you have my divine will as end, you will give me the glory and the requital of the love for having prepared a celestial fatherland for creatures as their happy dwelling. Therefore be attentive, my daughter, and I seal in your soul my divine will as origin, means, and end. That will be for you life, the safe guide, the support, and will lead you in its arms to the celestial fatherland. Volume 29, April 24th, 1931. I waited for so long to descend from heaven to earth in order to give the chosen people sufficient time to prepare, with their acts, prayers, and sacrifices, the little ground on which I could place the fruits of redemption that were so superabundant that creatures have yet to take everything. And if they had done more, I would have given more. And if I had wanted to give more without even a comma, a dot of their acts, it would have been for them like an illegible book whose language is unknown, like a treasury as though without key, such that one does not know what is inside. In fact, the act of the creature is the eye that reads and the key that opens in order to take my gifts. And besides, to give without the gift given being known, it would have been a sorrow and unworthy of our wisdom. Therefore be attentive in following my divine will. The more you will follow it, the more you will recognize it, and the more superabundant it will be in giving its goods. Volume 29, May 4th, 1931. My daughter, because all the acts that you do in your interior are acts taught and formed by me, so they are my acts, and I do not want you to remain behind without uniting yourself together with me in order to follow them. In fact, you must know that when I do a crafting in the soul, when I speak and teach, your Jesus has such power as to convert the good taught and operated in the creature into her nature. And good in one's nature cannot be destroyed. It would be as if you had the eye given to you by God as property of your nature, and you would not make use of it in order to look, or voice, hands, feet, and you would not make use of them in order to speak, to operate, and walk. Would you not be worthy of condemnation? Now, just as I give gifts in one's nature to the body, in the same way, when I speak, my creative word has the power to give to the soul, as though in her nature, the gift that I intend to give with my word. In fact, one fiat of mine can enclose a heaven, a sun, an incessant prayer as gift, with which my fiat has the power to convert these gifts as though into the soul's nature. So what you do in your interior are gifts in your nature that my word has formed in you. Therefore you will be attentive not to keep my gifts as useless. I placed them in you so that with these repeated acts in my will, we may together impetrate the great gift that my divine will come to reign upon earth. More so, good daughter, since the repeated acts are like fluid for the plant. If the plant has no fluid, it withers and cannot produce either flowers or fruits. The fluid is like the vital blood of the plant that, circulating in it, preserves it, makes it grow, and makes it produce the most beautiful and tasty fruits, such as to form the glory and the profit of the farmer. But this fluid does not form on its own in the plant. It is the farmer that must be attentive to water it and cultivate it, and not once, but always, giving it as though in its nature sufficient fluid, so that the poor plant may find the daily nourishment in order to vegetate and grow, to be able to give its fruits to he who cultivates it. But if the farmer is slothful, the plant loses the fluid and dies. See then what the repeated acts are. They are the blood of the soul, the nourishment, the preservation, and the growth of my gifts. And I, as celestial farmer, never cease watering you, so there is no danger that I might be slothful. But you must receive this vital fluid, and only then do you receive it when you repeat the acts in my will in the depth of your soul. Then you open your mouth, and I, watering you, give you the blood into your soul, so as to give you divine warmth, celestial nourishment, and adding for you more words of mine, I preserve you, and I increase my gifts. Oh, if the plant had reason and refused to be watered by the farmer, what would be the lot of the poor plant? The lot of losing life. And what sorrow for the poor farmer? Therefore, to repeat the acts is to want life. It is to take the nourishment. To repeat is to love and appreciate and satisfy the yearnings, and make your celestial farmer content, who with so much love has worked in the field of your soul. And as I hear you repeat your acts, whether together with me or on your own, you give me the fruits of my work, and I feel loved back and repaid for the many gifts I have given you, and I dispose myself to give you greater gifts. Therefore be attentive, and let your constancy be the winning strength that conquers and dominates your Jesus. Volume 29, June 23, 1931. What sorrow would it not be for a father to have children, and not to see them around himself, so as to love one another and enjoy the fruit of his inmost being? And if these children did not possess the goods of their father, would it not be an even greater sorrow? Such is our divinity. We extended our paternity in an infinite way in all creation. As Father, we are all eyes over our children, that they may lack nothing. Our arms feel the extreme need of love, to clasp man to our bosom, so as to give him love and receive love. And when we see the creature running to us, wanting our embraces, oh, how happy we feel that our paternity is recognized, and can carry out the office of father for our children. Our generation is almost innumerable, yet a few children surround us. All others are far from us, far with the heart, with the will, far from our likeness. And in our sorrow, in seeing the few children around us, we say, "And the other children, where are they? How can they not feel the need to have a celestial father, to receive our paternal caresses, to possess our goods?" Therefore be attentive, recognize our goods, our works, and you will feel our paternity in the heavens, studded with stars that in their meek twinkling call you daughter and attest to you the love of your Father. Our paternity extends in the sun, that with its vibrant light calls you daughter and says to you, "Recognize in my light the great gift of your Father, who loves you so much that he wants you to be the possessor of this light." Our paternity extends everywhere, in the water you drink, in the food you take, in the varieties of the beauties of all nature. They have a common voice, all calling you daughter of the great celestial Father, and as a daughter of his, they want to be possessed by you. Now, what would be our contentment if, in all things created by us, at our tender voice calling you daughter, we heard your voice calling us Father, and saying to us, "This is a gift of my Father. Oh, how he loves me, and I want to love him very, very much." Volume 29, July 17th, 1931. My daughter, the creature is carried in the arms of my divine will, and its love is so great that it keeps all creation around her, as if in act it were always, always creating it to give her pleasure and render her happy, and say to her, "My creative strength maintains all this machine of the universe. If it withdrew, the sun would disappear as if by magic. The heavens and all the other things would resolve into nothing, just as from nothing they came out. So my creative power keeps on creating it continuously, and can say in all reality, 'It is precisely for you that I am creating the sun, so that your life, your journey, may be strewn with light. For you the azure heavens, so that your eye may wander afar and delight in their extension. I am creating everything for you. I maintain everything in order because I love you.' My divine will makes itself life and act of all things. It sustains them and preserves them. It places them around the creature to make her feel, from all things and from all sides, its unmovable life, its immutable strength, its invincible love. It can be said that it clasps her everywhere as triumph of its love. And it maintains not only the external order and all things in act, as if it were creating them, but it maintains internally, with its creative strength, the whole internal order of the creature. So it is always in act of creating the heartbeat, the breath, the motion, the circulation of the blood, the intelligence, the memory, the will. It runs as life in the heartbeat, in the breath, in everything. It sustains and preserves, without ever withdrawing from the soul and from the body. Yet this supreme will of mine is everything, does everything, and is not recognized, but rather forgotten. It could say, as I said to the apostles, "I have been with you for so long, and you still do not know me?" Many things are made known that do not form the life of the creature, and of my will, that forms the life and is continuous act of life, otherwise she could not live. Nothing is made known. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. Recognize it in you and outside of you, in everything, more than your own life. And you will feel admirable things. Its continuous act that loves you with untiring love, and only because it loves you, it gives you life. Volume 29, July 27th, 1931. If you knew what it means not to do my divine will! The creature dares to prevent and to make die that motion that never ceases, and to give death to the holy acts that my divine will has established to perform in the creature. It wants to give divine life, and while it is about to give it, if the human will does not receive it and is opposed, it makes itself knife to kill and suffocate this divine life in its soul. Not doing my will seems to be nothing, while it is all the evil of the creature. It is the greatest offense to our Supreme Majesty. Therefore be attentive, and let your abandonment in it be continuous. Volume 29, August 10th, 1931. My daughter, there is nothing more beautiful, holier, more gracious, and that possesses an enrapturing force and virtue, than a soul who lets herself be dominated by my divine will. She is the smile of heaven and of the earth. Each act of hers forms a rapture for her Creator, who feels the sweet force of his will in the creature, and sweetly lets himself be enraptured. And all the blessed feel that from the earth there is someone who enraptures the will of heaven to make it her own and to live in common with them. Oh, how they feel twice as happy in seeing that also on earth reigns that Fiat, that while it beatifies them and forms their supreme happiness, reigns at one point of the earth, operating and triumphant. Therefore at that point of the earth appears a nimbus of heaven, a divine will operating, a smile of the celestial fatherland, that draws the attention of the whole of heaven on that point, to keep it defended, and to enjoy that smile that the divine will forms in that creature. In fact, the saints are inseparable from all the acts of it, and they enjoy and take part in them according to their merits. More so, since the acts done in my divine will are as many chains of love that flow between heaven and earth, and they love all without putting anyone aside. And because she loves all, she is well liked by all. Therefore, my daughter, be attentive. Fly, run, always in my divine will, that you may form the smile of heaven upon earth. It is beautiful to see heaven smile, but since happiness and smile are its own properties, it is the earth that renders itself more beautiful, more attractive, for the celestial smile that my divine will forms in the creature is not a property of its own. Volume 29, September 7th, 1931. Do you think that a repeated, continuous good is nothing? They are divine properties that one acquires. They are armies that are formed, that make one conquer the celestial fatherland. It happens to the one who has continued many good acts, as to someone who has acquired many properties. If he has a setback, it won't be able to do him much harm, because the many properties will fill the void of the setback that he suffered. But if someone else has acquired little, or possesses nothing, a little setback is enough to leave him destitute of the most squalid misery. Such is to do much good, or little, or nothing. This is why I always repeat to you, be attentive, be faithful to me, and let your flight in my will be continuous. You have reached the end of the Be Attentive series, Volume 29. Fiat.